everybody. It's Chris Eads, known online as Wootini, here with another Gay Gamer video podcast. The first thing I want to talk about is I went to see Jaws in 3D. Not this Jaws 3D. The real Jaws, the original Jaws, the really excellent, amazing Jaws that is now even more amazing because it's in 3D. Seriously, I was not sure what to expect from this conversion, given that it wasn't shot for 3D back in '75. But just like with Jurassic Park, Spielberg really puts a lot of depth into his compositions, and it ends up working really, really well in 3D. And then it's really impressive. Like right from the first kill when Chrissy gets attacked in the ocean in the night, and they basically pull the foreground out of the picture. So when she's being attacked and thrashing in the water, it's happening right in front of you. Like, you're in there with her, you know? So you're in the water with the victims. They pull the water into the foreground, so it's like you're in there with them. And it's like, it makes it so much more intense. And then, of course, at the end, when, like, there's a shot that I actually did flinch and jump back in my seat because, you know, the shark comes busting through the ship, and it's like, wah! And it comes right out at you, and it was very impressive. And so the whole thing was just, it's an amazing movie, but it's like even more amazing in 3D. So if you love Jaws, I recommend this. It's also playing in IMAX. Unfortunately, they're not offering it in IMAX 3D, but I'm sure it's awesome in IMAX too. But the 3D really does add a lot to it, and it brings you into the movie. So if you have a chance, if you are at all interested, I recommend going to the theater and seeing Jaws in 3D while you can. Just keep your mask on because there's still COVID everywhere and no one's wearing masks anymore. So protect yourselves. As for games, I do actually want to talk about Animal Crossing this episode because I am still playing it. Obviously, I play it every day, as you know. Regular viewers, you all know that I'm obsessed and I will play Animal Crossing every day. However, there's not really a lot to talk about because it's just the same sort of thing. It's just my relaxing escape from the world. But a week or so ago, I decided to make a list of all of the bugs and fish that I have not caught for the museum yet. Because the problem is that I tend to play Animal Crossing at the same time of day, either during my lunch hour or after work. And on the weekends, it's during the day. So I don't play at night or in the overnight hours. So there's a lot of bugs and fish that are only around in the evenings and overnights or early mornings that I've never seen because I don't play during those hours. So I needed to know when they were going to be around so that I could make the effort to try to play during those hours here and there and see if I could maybe catch them. And because I've never, in all of the Animal Crossing games I've ever played, I've never been able to finish the museum with the fish or the bugs. Fossils and art, easy peasy. Those have been done for ages. But the bugs and fish, I just can't catch them because I just don't see them to catch. The problem was that I found out there were like a half a dozen bugs that, I mean, I'm missing more than that, but there were like a half a dozen bugs that were around until the end of August. But like 4 of them only appear on coconut trees, and I only had like a half a dozen coconut trees in the island. So I was like, So I had to plant a whole bunch more coconut trees all around the island. And then that took a few days to grow, and there were a couple of bugs that appeared, and I was playing at night a lot more, and there were a couple of bugs that I managed to catch off trees, but the coconut tree bugs, they were a complete disaster. Like I think I saw one of them a couple of times, but I couldn't catch it. I would get near and it would disappear. It would fly off. So I was like, well, this is going to be tricky. And I don't think I saw any of the other ones. So I'm like, ugh. And now it's September, so I'm going to have to wait until next year to finish this, if I can. I don't know, because they seem to be really hard to catch, so we'll see. But it's funny because I looked at this list and there were things on there, like, I never caught a dung beetle. And I was like, how have I never caught a dung beetle? Like, every winter I see those little bugs pushing those snowballs around the ground, and I never thought to catch one. Did I think I had already caught one and now I just let them go? So as soon as the snow falls, I've got to catch me one of those, because that's just embarrassing that I don't have one of those in the museum. I mean, come on. So we'll see, but it'll definitely take me a year because I have to wait until June before they show up again on those coconut trees. But at least now I'll have a full few months instead of a week. Less than a week, really. And then, as I mentioned last episode, I purchased the Siege of Paris DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And so I've been playing that over the past week. And it's pretty good. I mean, obviously, I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so more of it is fine. And I would not have paid $25 for this. I got it because it was half off. It was like $12.50. And I said, okay, fine. $12.50, all right, fine. And I caved so I could play it. But because for $25, I'm like, that's like almost half the cost of the base game. And the base game has so much freaking content that you're not going to get half that much content again in the DLC, you know? But for $12.50, I'm like, okay, fine. There's probably that much content in here. Because there's the main quest, but then there's also like side quests and the mysteries and the wealth and the stuff to explore. Because France is a decent sized map, so I'm like, okay. And there's stuff to discover and find and do and whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to probably get $13 out of this. That's fine. And so far it's been good. I did some of the main quest. Then as soon as I had a moment where it was like, okay, now go back here and tell them how this mission went. I was like, yeah, I'll take the long way around and I'm going to go explore over here and I'm going to see what that blue dot is and that white dot and, you know, work my way back doing all kinds of random stuff. Because that's the fun of the Assassin's Creed games, is discovering things and doing them and finding treasures and figuring out how to get to them, and it's fun. But I did want to play something else on my new PS5. The problem is that it's just like, you know, it's just like before. It's like, it's not really a PS5 game. It's a PS4 game. I feel like the games that have been coming out lately that are PS4 and PS5, they're PS4 games that are like enhanced for PS5. They're not made for the PS5 and then kind of dumbed down for the PS4, you know? So it's just sort of way faster loading times, obviously. When you actually first boot up the game, that still takes a little while. Not as long, but still takes a substantial amount of time. But when you're like fast traveling and stuff, or reloading a game save because you fuck something up, it's not so bad. Like it's pretty quick. Like when you're seeing Eivor in the thing and he's just sort of, and you get the little hints in the corner. You get like one hint. You can maybe scroll to a second hint and then you've loaded and you're done. So it's like, that's kind of nice. But other than the loading times, there's a little more detail in the graphics, I guess. Like in the clothing and in the faces and like in the, you know, environment. There's like the grass and the trees. They seem a little bit more detailed, maybe. But the game already looked gorgeous. It's like when I checked out Horizon and I was like, yeah, it still looks gorgeous. It doesn't look more gorgeous. It just looks gorgeous still. So I'm not really seeing any new difference. So we'll see what happens when like PS5 only games are released and if those can be like super amazing, impressive. I mean, I know there are some, but I haven't played any of them. There's nothing that I want to play yet. So, and of course, the initial games aren't going to be as impressive as the ones that come out later once the developers can really work with the system and all. But I do feel like it's not going to be that big of a deal because it's like remember when you first saw a PlayStation 1 and you saw PS1 graphics and you were like, oh my god, this is so realistic, these polygons, everything looks like it's so much better than sprites. But now you look at it and it's like, oh my god, how did we ever think that that was realistic looking? But at the time, it was like amazing. And then when the PS2 came out, you were like, oh my god, like it's even more realistic. Holy crap, this is incredible. And then jumping to the PS3, you're like, okay, that's a little better still. Sure, that's still slightly improved. But I felt like jumping from the PS3 to the PS4 was kind of like, all right, I guess it's a little better. And going from the PS4 to the PS5, I'm like, I'm not really seeing it, but that I know it's improved, but it's just not as drastic as like going from PS1 to PS2. You know what I mean? So, but you know, I want to play with my new PS5. So, that's it for this episode. I will talk more about Assassin's Creed Valhalla Siege of Paris in the next episode. I just don't want this one to run too long. So I will see you next time where I will have more to say about it. Come back and find out how I really like all the new additions to the combat and gameplay. Bye!